My name is Rachel Monroe. I'm 32 years old, and I didn't know my life was about to split cleanly into a before and an after until 10:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, while I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, waiting for my coffee maker to stop screaming at me. I work from home most days. Software consulting. Long contracts, decent money, predictable chaos. The kind of job that lets you wear leggings to meetings and pretend you're listening while mentally fixing problems 3 steps ahead. My boyfriend Daniel had already left for work. He'd rushed out, late as usual, kissing my cheek, mumbling something about traffic and a client call. Normal morning, comfortable, familiar. He forgot his laptop on the kitchen table. The screen was still on. I noticed it only because I was reaching for my mug and the light caught my eye. A white document. Black text, a title centered at the top. Our 5-year plan. I actually smiled. That sounds ridiculous now, but in that moment it felt sweet, naive maybe. We'd been together almost 2 years. He'd been living with me for 8 months. We talked about marriage in that vague, someday-ish way couples do when they don't want to jinx anything. I assumed it was a Pinterest-adjacent fantasy. Vacation ideas. Wedding budgets, baby names written in a font that looked handwritten on purpose. I clicked it without thinking. I wish I could say I stopped reading after the first paragraph. I didn't. The first bullet point made my stomach drop so fast I had to sit down. Stop taking birth control without telling her. Aim for accidental pregnancy within 6 months. I reread it 3 times, convinced I'd misunderstood. I hadn't. There were spreadsheets embedded in the document. Actual spreadsheets, color-coded, timelines, contingency notes. She thinks I'm still on the pill. Act surprised, emotional, lean into the shock. My hands started shaking, not violently, just enough that I noticed. I kept reading. Move fully into her house and establish legal residence. There was a small green checkmark next to that one. Reduce work hours after pregnancy. She's responsible. She'll cover everything. My income was listed in a neat cell on the right, $140,000 annually. The document continued, calm and methodical, like a business proposal. File for divorce around year 3. Claim emotional neglect. Workaholic tendencies. Family courts favor mothers. Custody should be straightforward. Estimated child support, $2,000 per month. Projected alimony, 3 to 5 years. Then the line that made my vision blur. She bought the house before we met, but if we're married when I file, I'm entitled to half the equity. At the bottom, in smaller font, like a mission statement, financial security for me and the baby. Freedom afterward. She's stable, a little boring, but that's what makes this work. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Something inside me clicked off. My brain went very quiet. Very clear. I forwarded the entire document to my personal email. Then I sent it to my lawyer, the same woman who'd handled my house purchase years earlier, with 1 line of text. Need to talk ASAP. Urgent. I took photos. The document open. The file properties. The timestamp showing it had been edited 4 days ago. Daniel's logged in profile. Then I closed the laptop and put it back exactly where he'd left it. When Daniel came home that night, he was cheerful. Told me about a frustrating meeting. Asked what I wanted for dinner. Pizza's fine, I said. We ate. We watched TV. He leaned against me like nothing in the world had changed. I didn't say a word. My lawyer called the next morning. This, she said slowly after I explained, is extremely deliberate. If he ever tried to claim anything legally, this would destroy his credibility. Should I confront him? I asked. No, she said immediately. Not yet. Let's be smart. That was the moment I understood something important. This wasn't about heartbreak. This was about survival. The strange thing about betrayal is how quiet it can be. I'd always imagined it would come with shouting, tears, a dramatic confrontation where everything cracked open at once. Instead, my days kept moving forward like nothing had changed. Daniel still kissed me goodbye in the mornings, still complained about traffic, still asked what I wanted for dinner. And I still smiled, nodded, answered like a woman who hadn't seen her entire future reduced to bullet points and formulas on a glowing screen. On the outside, nothing was wrong. On the inside, I was building a firewall. My lawyer, Marianne, didn't sugarcoat anything. "You're lucky," she told me during our call. "You're not married. The house is solely in your name. Your finances are separate. That document proves intent, but we don't even need to use it yet." "Yet," I repeated. "No confrontation," she said. "Not until you're protected. First rule, document everything." So I did. I started a private folder on my computer. Dates, times, notes. Daniel got home at 6:40 p.m., asked if I'd paid the electric bill yet. Venmo payment received, $400, labeled utilities. Conversation about future, vague but positive. It felt paranoid. It felt calculated. It also felt necessary. The second step was locking down my assets. Marianne drafted a cohabitation agreement, clean, unemotional language. It stated exactly what our relationship was and what it wasn't. We were dating. We lived together. We were not married. No common law claims, no shared property, no entitlement to income, assets, or equity. I printed it out and left it on the kitchen table one morning, right next to Daniel's coffee mug. I added a sticky note. "Hey, love, my financial advisor suggested we both sign this since we're living together. Just standard protection stuff. Covers both of us. Nothing dramatic." He didn't even ask a question. That part still stings when I think about it. He signed it that afternoon, took a photo, sent it to me with heart emojis and a done. Didn't read it. Didn't hesitate. That was when the sadness crept in. Not the explosive kind, but the hollow realization that I'd been right not to trust the affection anymore. The third step was riskier. Marianne had warned me, "You need to shut down the pregnancy angle without revealing you know about it." So I waited. Saturday night. Couch, wine, some forgettable show playing in the background. Daniel was relaxed, scrolling through his phone, half listening. "Random question," I said casually. "Do you see us getting married someday?" He looked up instantly, smiled, too fast. "Of course," he said. "When the time's right. Why?" I took a breath, measured my tone. "I've been thinking a lot about the future," I said, like really thinking. "And I realized something I need to be honest about." His phone lowered. "I don't want kids," I said, "ever. And I'm actually looking into permanent options, like a sterilization consult." The silence that followed was sharp enough to feel. "What?" he said. "I know we haven't talked about it seriously," I continued, calm, steady. "But I've realized I'm happy with my life as it is. My work, my freedom. A child would change everything, and I don't want that change." His face froze. It wasn't anger. Not yet. It was calculation. "You're serious?" he asked. "I am," I said. "Is that a deal breaker for you? Because I'd understand if it is." He didn't answer right away. "I need time," he said finally. "This is a lot." "Take all the time you need," I said gently. "I just didn't want to waste either of our lives if we want different things." The next 2 days were cold. Daniel barely spoke, went to bed early, took calls in the other room. I caught him staring at me once, like he was trying to solve a math problem that no longer worked. On Monday, he texted me from work. "I think we need to talk about where this relationship is going. Maybe I should move back to my apartment for a bit." I almost laughed. His lease had ended months ago. He'd sublet it to someone else. There was no apartment to go back to, just his parents' place 3 hours away, or a couch rotation. "If that's what you need," I texted back, "I understand." He didn't move out. Instead, he pivoted. First came the tears. Long, emotional speeches about how he'd always dreamed of being a father, how he thought we were building something real, how devastated he was that I'd make such a huge decision without considering his feelings. I stayed calm. "I did consider your feelings," I said. "That's why I'm being honest now." Then came the anger. He accused me of leading him on, of wasting his time, called me selfish, immature, said I was afraid of commitment. I didn't argue. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I repeated, over and over. Then came bargaining. "What if we just had one?" he asked one night. "I'd do most of the work. You wouldn't even have to help much." That was the moment my chest tightened. "Absolutely not," I said. "I've made my decision." That's when the atmosphere in the house shifted. He stopped paying his share of expenses. When I asked, he shrugged. "You make way more than me. You can afford it. Besides, I'm saving up since you're basically kicking me out." I hadn't asked him to leave. But suddenly, I was the villain in every version of the story he told. I caught him in my filing cabinet one night, the one in my office, locked. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Looking for a charger," he said quickly. In a locked cabinet, I started taking photos. Messy rooms, piled dishes, his laundry scattered like he didn't care anymore. When I asked him to clean up, he snapped, "Why does it matter? You don't even want me here." His mother called me 2 days later. "You broke my son's heart," she said, without preamble. "He gave up everything for you." I was honest about my boundaries, I replied evenly. He's choosing how to respond to that. "You let him on," she said. "You're cold." Maybe I was, but I was also still standing. By the third week, the house didn't feel like mine anymore, not because Daniel had taken over the space, but because every room carried tension now. Like the walls were listening, like every step had to be measured. He'd perfected the art of passive resistance. He'd leave dirty dishes stacked neatly in the sink, just clean enough to look intentional. His shoes blocked the hallway, his jacket draped over the chair I used for work calls. Small things, petty things. The kind of mess that said, "I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere." And then there were the comments. "So," he said one evening, leaning against the counter, arms crossed, "have you scheduled that procedure yet?" The word dripped with sarcasm. "I'm still looking into my options," I replied, not looking up from my laptop. "Funny," he muttered. "You didn't hesitate when you decided you didn't want a family." I closed the laptop slowly and met his eyes. "I didn't say I didn't want a family," I said. "I said I don't want children." He scoffed. Same thing, it wasn't. But I'd learned arguing with him now was pointless. He wasn't trying to understand. He was trying to win. The real shift happened when his friends started reaching out. At first, it was subtle. A text from someone I barely spoke to anymore. "Hey, hope you're doing okay. Daniel seems really stressed." Then came the concern masked as accusation. "He says you've been really distant. That true?" I kept my responses neutral. "We're going through some personal stuff. I hope you understand." Most people backed off. A few didn't. One afternoon, I opened the door to find a woman standing on my porch, Daniel's closest friend since college. She didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside like she belonged there. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" I asked calmly. "About what you're doing to him," she snapped. "He's miserable, crying every night. You can't just pull the rug out from under someone like this." I was honest about my boundaries, I said. "He's free to make his own choices." "You know he has nowhere else to go," she said, stepping closer. "You're making him feel trapped." He's a grown man," I said evenly, "with a job, with options. He's choosing to stay." Her eyes narrowed. "You know," she said slowly, "people in his position usually have rights. You can't just throw him out and keep everything." There it was. The test. I smiled. "We have a signed cohabitation agreement," I said. "It clearly states he has no claim to my property or income, but thank you for your concern." The color drained from her face. "You made him sign something?" she whispered. "I asked him to sign a document that accurately reflects our relationship," I replied. "He signed willingly." She didn't say another word, just turned and left. That night, Daniel confronted me. "Did you trick me?" he demanded, "into signing that agreement?" "You signed a document that states the truth," I said calmly. "We're not married. This isn't your house." "You're unbelievable," he shouted. "After everything I gave up for you." "You chose to end your lease," I said. "I never asked you to." That was the moment his mask finally slipped. He stopped pretending. He started accusing me, loudly, of using him, of being heartless, of stringing him along for years. I waited until he ran out of steam. "I think it's time for you to move out," I said. "You have 30 days. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "You can't do that." I just did. He screamed, threw insults like knives, claimed I'd ruined his life, said I'd used his best years and thrown him away. I walked to my office and locked the door. The next morning, his laptop was gone from the kitchen table. I didn't mention it, but I noticed. The following weeks were chaos. He told anyone who would listen that I'd financially abused him, that I'd forced him to pay rent while controlling all the money, that I'd emotionally manipulated him into dependency. I kept my response simple. We're breaking up because we want different things. I've given him notice to move out. Most accepted that. A few took his side. I let them go. Then came the legal threats. A letter from a paralegal. Aggressive tone, legal jargon clearly meant to intimidate. Claimed I couldn't evict him without 60 days' notice. Claimed tenant rights. My lawyer responded within hours. Attached the cohabitation agreement. Highlighted sections. Calm language. They never replied. That's when Daniel tried a new tactic. He became affectionate, apologetic, attentive, brought home flowers, cooked dinner, told me he'd been thinking. Maybe I don't need to be a dad, he said one night softly. Maybe we could just get a dog. I looked at him for a long moment. Nothing had changed. No, I said, you still need to move out. His smile collapsed. The police called me 2 days later. Apparently, Daniel had filed a report claiming I'd stolen his laptop. The officer sounded bored. He says you went through his personal files, the officer said. I saw a document that was already open on his screen, I replied steadily. I didn't access anything else. It's a civil matter, the officer said. He'd have to take it to court. After that, Daniel moved fast. He showed up with his father and brother, a rented truck. They loaded his furniture, his clothes, everything. Daniel didn't speak to me once, just glared. As they were leaving, his brother pulled me aside. Watch your back, he said quietly. He's not stable right now. I thanked him. 3 days later, I saw Daniel on my doorbell camera, trying his old key, pounding on the door, yelling. I sent the footage to my lawyer, just in case. The house felt different once Daniel was gone. Not lighter, quieter. The kind of quiet that lets your thoughts echo a little too loudly. I slept with my phone on the nightstand after that. Not because I was afraid something would happen, but because I'd learned the hard way that people who lose control don't disappear quietly. 2 days after the doorbell footage, Marianne called me. He tried something, she said. Of course he did. Apparently, Daniel had been telling anyone who would listen that I'd financially abused him, that I'd controlled his money, that I'd forced him to pay rent while monitoring his spending, that I'd emotionally isolated him, so he had no choice but to rely on me. It was impressive, really, how quickly he'd rewritten reality. He's testing the waters, Marianne continued, trying to see who believes him, trying to build a narrative. What do? I asked. Nothing, she said. Not publicly. Silence is your friend right now. So I stayed silent. When mutual friends messaged me, I kept it brief, calm, boring. We broke up. He moved out. I wish him well. Some people saw through it immediately. Others didn't. I lost a couple friendships that week. People I'd known for years. They never asked me what happened. Just assumed. It hurt more than I expected. But pain has a way of clarifying priorities. A week later, the paralegal tried again. This time, it was a voicemail. Long, condescending, full of vague threats about alimony claims and unjust enrichment. Marianne laughed when she heard it. This is bluffing, she said. There's no case. He's hoping you panic. I didn't. Then Daniel switched tactics again. He sent me a text late one night. I've been thinking a lot. I'm sorry for how I acted. I let my fear get the best of me. I didn't respond. Another text came the next day. I miss you. I don't want to end things like this. Still nothing. By the end of the week, he was calling, leaving voicemails, apologizing, crying, promising therapy, promising change. I was just scared, he said in one message. I never meant to hurt you. I listened to them once, then archived everything. The following Monday, I went into the office for an in-person meeting, something I rarely did anymore. I forgot one crucial thing. Daniel still had access to my location through an old shared app we'd set up years ago. I realized my mistake when I walked out to the parking lot and saw him leaning against his car. My stomach dropped. "Rachel," he said, stepping toward me, "we need to talk." "No," I said immediately. "We really don't." He blocked my path. "You ruined my life," he said, voice shaking. "I gave up everything for you." "You gave up a lease," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "That was your choice. Please move." People were watching now. Employees passing by, curious glances. "You think you're untouchable," he hissed, "but I have proof. Texts, witnesses. I can destroy your reputation." That was it. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marianne. "He's here," I said calmly, "at my workplace. He's threatening me." Daniel's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" he snapped, reaching for my phone. I stepped back. "I'm on the phone with my attorney," I said. "Please leave." He froze. Then he turned and ran, back to his car and peeled out of the lot. Marianne filed for a temporary restraining order that afternoon. We attached everything: the doorbell footage, the parking lot incident, the threatening messages, screenshots of his friend's earlier threats about taking me for everything. The hearing was scheduled quickly. Daniel showed up with his mother and that same paralegal friend. He wouldn't look at me. The judge was calm, direct. "Did you go to the petitioner's workplace after being asked not to contact her?" the judge asked. "I just wanted to talk," Daniel said. "She wouldn't answer my calls." "And did you attempt to enter her residence after you'd already moved out?" "I left some of my things there, with a key that no longer worked," the judge said, "suggesting you knew you were no longer welcome." Daniel didn't respond. The judge granted the order. 500 feet. 1 year. Daniel's mother started crying. "This is just a breakup," she sobbed. "You're ruining my son's life." The judge didn't even look at her. "This is about harassment and threats," he said. "The order stands." As we left the courtroom, the paralegal caught up to me in the hallway. "You know he's going to fight this," she said quietly. "He's already talked to lawyers." "Good luck," I replied. "He signed a cohabitation agreement. We were never married, and he has his own income. He'll make your life hell." "He's legally required to stay away from me," I said, "so no, he won't." A week passed. Then 2. Nothing. No messages, no sightings, no surprises. I changed my phone number, removed location sharing, updated every password. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. The house felt like mine again. Still, there was one thought I couldn't shake. If I hadn't seen that document, if I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I'd confronted him instead of planning, I might not be standing here. And that realization lingered like a quiet warning. I thought the restraining order would be the final chapter. 500 feet, 1 year, clear boundaries, legally enforced. On paper, it was supposed to mean silence. In reality, it meant Daniel had lost the ability to confront me directly, and people like him rarely stop when they lose access. They just get more creative. The first sign came quietly. An email from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey Rachel, this might be awkward, but Daniel reached out. He's saying some worrying things. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen longer than necessary. "I'm fine," I replied. "I can't discuss details, but there's a court order in place." That was all I said. Marianne had warned me this might happen. "When someone can't reach you, they try to reach around you," she'd said. "They poke at your life, your reputation, your support system." She was right. Over the next few days, I heard fragments, whispers, half stories traveling through mutual acquaintances like static. Apparently, Daniel was telling people I'd set him up, that I'd tricked him into signing documents he didn't understand, that I'd weaponized the legal system to silence him. It was impressive how convincing he could sound if you didn't know the facts. One former colleague messaged me outright. "He says you planned all of this," she wrote, "that you never wanted kids and pretended otherwise just to control him." I typed, deleted, typed again. I was honest about my boundaries, I finally sent. "Everything else is a matter of public record." That was the truth. And I was done defending it. Then came the package. It arrived on a Thursday afternoon, left on my porch without a return address. No name, no note. Inside was a single item, a printed copy of the cohabitation agreement, my signature circled in red ink. Under it, written in shaky handwriting, "You ruined everything." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with certainty. He wasn't done. I called Marianne immediately. "That violates the spirit of the order," she said. "Indirect contact through intimidation still counts." "What do we do?" "We document," she said. "Always." I photographed the package, logged the date, added it to the growing file that now lived both digitally and physically in my home safe. 2 days later, Daniel escalated. I was leaving the grocery store when I noticed the car parked across the lot. Same model, same dent near the back bumper. He stayed inside, didn't approach, didn't wave, just watched. I walked back into the store and called the non-emergency line. By the time an officer arrived, the car was gone, but the message had been delivered. Marianne didn't hesitate after that. "We're filing to extend and formalize," she said. "This pattern matters." The follow-up hearing was shorter than the first. More evidence, more documentation, more calm explanation. The judge didn't look impressed. "This order exists to prevent exactly this behavior," he said, flipping through the file. "Any further contact, direct or indirect, will carry consequences." Daniel wasn't there this time. His lawyer was. Quiet, professional, very different energy. The order was extended. That night, something in me finally cracked. Not into pieces, but open. I sat on the living room floor, back against the couch, and cried. Not the panicked kind. Not the devastated kind. The exhausted kind. 2 years. That's how long we've been together. 2 years of shared routines. Inside jokes. Lazy Sundays. Moments that felt real, because they were real, at least to me. And yet, somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being a person to him. I'd become a plan, a resource, a spreadsheet. The realization hurt more than the threats ever had. Therapy helped, not in a dramatic movie scene way, just steady. A place where I could say things out loud without being told I was cold or overreacting. My therapist said something that stuck with me. "You didn't lose a relationship," she said. "You escaped a long-term manipulation." A month passed, then another. The messages stopped. The rumors faded. New distractions replaced old drama. Daniel, apparently, had moved back in with his parents. I heard that secondhand. He'd told people he was starting over. Good. So was I. One evening, as I was locking up for the night, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked calmer. Older, maybe, but clearer. The house was quiet again. And this time, it felt earned. Silence doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps back in slowly, between mornings that no longer feel rushed, between evenings where your shoulders finally drop without you noticing. After the second restraining order hearing, the world didn't magically reset. There was no triumphant music, no dramatic closure. There was just space. The first thing I noticed was how well I slept. No half waking at every sound. No instinctive reach for my phone to check messages that weren't there anymore. I stopped dreaming about arguments that never ended. The house settled into itself again. I rearranged furniture, not because I needed to, but because I could. Moved the desk back toward the window. Took down the framed photos that had quietly started to feel like artifacts from someone else's life. I boxed up everything that reminded me of Daniel and labeled it archive. Not trash. Not memories, just proof of something that existed and ended. Marianne checked in once a week for a while. Less legal advice, more reassurance. "He hasn't filed anything," she told me one afternoon. "No alimony claims, no nonsense." I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for months. "Honestly," she added, "if he ever does try, that document you found would destroy him. Premeditation, bad faith, it's airtight." That document. I still thought about it sometimes, not with rage, but with disbelief. How calmly it had been written, how confident, how certain he'd been that I'd play my role without question. I asked myself more than once how I'd missed it. Therapy helped me answer that. You didn't miss red flags, my therapist said gently. You ignored discomfort because you trusted someone who benefited from that trust. That wasn't stupidity. That was humanity. I started doing things again, small things at first, cooking real meals instead of takeout, running in the mornings, calling friends I drifted from while my emotional energy had been tied up managing someone else. Some friendships didn't come back. That hurt. But the ones that did felt solid, unconditional, uninterested in drama or sides. One night, my brother came over for dinner. He'd watched the whole situation from a distance, quietly furious on my behalf. "You okay?" he asked as we sat on the patio. "I am now," I said honestly. He nodded, then smirked. "Feel like you dodged a bullet?" I laughed, real laughter this time. "More like a tactical missile," I said. A few weeks later, I finally followed through on something that had started as a test. I scheduled the medical consultation, not because Daniel had forced my hand, not because I was afraid anymore, but because the entire ordeal had clarified something about myself with brutal precision. I valued autonomy. I valued choice. And I never wanted my body or my future to be leverage in someone else's strategy. The appointment was uneventful, informative, empowering even. I walked out feeling grounded in a way I hadn't in years. Life didn't become exciting overnight. It became stable. Work productivity returned. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned, joined a game night a friend hosted. Nothing dramatic, just laughter and bad snacks, and people who didn't expect anything from me except my presence. One evening, I grabbed coffee with someone from that group. Nothing serious, no promises, just conversation that didn't feel like a transaction. It felt normal, and I realized how long it had been since normal felt safe. Every now and then, someone would ask, carefully, if I regretted how I'd handled things, if I felt guilty for being so cold, if I thought I'd overreacted. I always answered the same way. He wrote a detailed plan to manipulate my body, my finances, and my future. I responded by setting boundaries, protecting myself legally, and refusing to participate. I sleep just fine, because that was the truth. I didn't ruin his life. I refused to let him ruin mine. The final update came quietly. Marianne emailed me one afternoon. No new activity. Order remains in place. You're clear. I closed my laptop and stood by the window for a long time. The street outside looked exactly the same as it always had, but I wasn't. I used to think betrayal was loud, that it announced itself with drama and explosions. Now I know better. Sometimes betrayal whispers. Sometimes it hides in documents titled Our Future. And sometimes the most powerful response isn't confrontation or revenge, but calm, deliberate refusal to be used. If there's anything I've learned, it's this. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself early. And never assume someone sees you as a person just because they say they love you. Life goes on. And it goes on better without someone quietly plotting to turn you into a resource.